6-hour round trip.
Yeah,
More than that.
exactly.
8-hour round
We
trip.
are
Yeah.
available for free trips to Cornwall if you're out there.
I mean, if anyone wants to give us a trip to the Maldives, I'll happily oblige and do a
Send
review.
it to Chris at Prohibition.
Press trip.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of traction through that. I mean, between Portfolio and Bradley Hall, we had 165 million impressions last year.
That's good.
The paper quality. I sound like a total nerd here because I'm like.
What stock is it?
passionate.
Come on,
It's
tell us what stock it is.
350, 350 GSM cover,
Angry content gets the most engagement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
which is sad, I think, isn't it?
It's a race to the bottom,
yeah,
isn't
it
it?
is a race
Because
to the bottom. awful.
it's breeding this, like you say, anger and frustration in people because news is so influential.
And it could be positive.
And that's
But the
exactly
the positive
why we
news side,
do.
there is a side that's all positive news, and it does terrible.
Yeah.
Because people want disaster and permacrisis, and
Yeah.
we pretend we don't want to hear it, but it would be nice to have a nice and finally story regularly.
Welcome to Socially Unacceptable, from F***ups to Fame, the marketing podcast that celebrates the professional mishaps, mistakes and misjudgments while delivering valuable marketing and life lessons in the time it takes you to eat your lunch.
So today we're joined by a magazine publisher, board director, marketing and brand expert, fundraiser, and winner of the UK Property Businesswoman of the Year, Cassie Moyes. Welcome to the show, Cassie.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
And thanks for coming down from sunny Newcastle.
No problem at all.
Good.
So let's dive straight into it then. So do you want to start by telling us a little bit about Portfolio North and what you do there? And then
Yeah.
I think both Chris and I are really keen to dig into the fuck-ups along the way that have allowed you to get there.
Yeah, there's been a few. So Portfolio North started in the Northeast in 2017 as a magazine, and basically it was, in all honesty, a magazine to promote one specific company, which is Bradley Hall, which is the company I'm still a director of. We're a property company. We do commercial and residential. So it started off to promote that, and it kind of started to grow its own legs. A lot more people were interested in featuring in it, and then we saw a really big opportunity to occupy a space in the market where there wasn't a magazine like that. It's business and lifestyle in the same publication, split 50-50 between the two. And then, we just started to get more and more people interested in it. We set up a website, we set up socials, they started to grow. We started to do email newsletters. And then in 2021, just after the lockdown, I spent a lot of lockdown learning how to really utilise the opportunity and to become a publisher and to become a magazine in its own right. So in 2021, we set it up as its own business, and now it's completely independent. And we have our own clients and service them really well. So that edition is distributed across the whole of the Northeast. And then we've just, we're about to launch in September the Yorkshire edition of Portfolio North, which is really exciting, and we'll be doing the same things for that as well as things like events. We've got an app that's going to launch soon. So lots of different elements that come together to make Portfolio North what it is today.
So launching a magazine in 2023 must be quite a tough proposition, I would think. So what and you've obviously had great traction with it. What have you done that's different? How have you kind of built this? Are you 40,000 circulation currently, something like that?
Per edition, yeah.
Yeah, so this is against the context of the print media in significant decline.
Yeah.
Journalists are, leaving the profession. What are you doing differently?
Yeah, I think it is. It's really sad to see the traditional newspaper sort of model not work anymore, and to see all those journalists out of work, because it's a skilled job, and you've got to be really talented to be able to deliver a story and to do that. So I do think that side of the industry sort of declining is quite sad. But I think with that comes the evolution of the print industry, and I think the magazine model is perfect because we publish every other month, so it's not too much, and it's really important and valuable stories. It's not like we're not filling a newspaper every day just for the sake of printing it. So there's that element, and I think there's a lot more value in getting something once every 2 months as well. People get it through the doors, we'll post it out to certain people, some people subscribe, so when they get it, they really look forward to it, and it's kind of a bit of a treat, I suppose, sitting with a print magazine and reading it, 'cause it's not often that you get a really good quality magazine. I picked up loads of magazines on the way on holiday, and most of them are filled with ads. And
Yeah.
that's not what we're about. We're about really good editorial pieces.
So do you have your own journalists on board then?
Yes, so we've just started to grow the team out. So funnily enough, the guy that started the magazine, because I didn't actually start it, I worked on the first two, but my ex-boss at the PR agency I worked at actually started the magazine. So I brought him back on board to help. So that's it's like a full circle moment for us. And we've had other freelance journalists, but we are looking to get some permanent members of staff on board soon, and to really grow a team and have people working for us, because it has to be sustainable financially as well, and to create jobs. That's what we want to do in Yorkshire and in the North East. So I think that the quality of the magazine is really good. The paper quality. I sound like a total nerd here because I'm like.
What stock is it?
passionate.
Come on,
it's
tell us what stock it is.
350 GSM cover, 180 inners.
Okay.
So it's nice and thick, nice and weighty. It's 100 pages. It's not oversaturated with lots of people from the same industries. So I tend to only have maybe one or two businesses from the same industry in there. So they get the limelight. And so that's the concept of the print edition. And then we also double that up with events. So we do different kinds of events. We've got a wine club.
Right.
So they are invite-only sort of exclusive events for half a dozen, maybe a dozen people. And they're people who we genuinely think can get business off each other. And we've run those really successfully now for about a year. People love that because it's just dead laid back. And people who are going to get on as well, just have a nice night together. Everyone's got business off the back of it, so that's been good. And we do the bigger knowledge events as well, so get a really interesting speaker in. We've hosted property events, marketing events, done sit-down dinners, done the more casual like lunch buffet style. So it's just creating different opportunities for people.
So the target audience of the magazine, obviously you're up in the North East, but now you're moving into Yorkshire. Is the grand plan to spread out to the whole of the UK? And is the target audience property, or is it business owners, or what is it?
The target audience is aspirational professionals. I used to say it was high net worths, but I don't think that's fair or the case. I think it's people who have got professional careers, who want to know what's going on in the North East, know about all the positives, because we don't do any sort of negative stories, like if a business is going bust or under or whatever. That's not what we're about. We're about celebrating what's going well. So people that want to sort of keep up to date with that, we did a perception survey last year, to find out really who the readers were. And it's people in management, sort of decision-making positions, but the age range, which I thought was really interesting, was between 25 and 45.
Okay.
So it's people who are young, high achievers, and who are probably at the start of a really interesting professional career, which I love about the magazine, because you find with a lot, in the North East especially, I think some of the magazines are set towards maybe an older audience, the business magazines particularly.
Yeah.
But we're targeting people who are younger and at the start of their careers.
Can I ask about the breakdown? So you said you've got print magazines 6 times a year, right?
Yes.
But you obviously, this is a podcast about digital marketing, comms, and
Yes.
digital marketers are listening. So what's the digital strategy for the magazine? So you've gone online and you're targeting 25 to 45s. So what's sort of the digital strategy behind it?
So the digital side of the magazine is really, really important, because I don't think print on its own would work. You do need to have the digital side as well. For us, we publish digital news every single day. So stories on the website every day. We share those on socials. We do 2 email newsletters every week as well. So we tend to do business on a Wednesday and then lifestyle on a Sunday. So we do monitor the open rates. Open rates are really good. We have around 40% open rate, and then the click-through is really high as well. So keeping an eye on what people are really engaging with and what people are interested in.
Okay.
And on socials too. So social media is a tricky one for publishing, because LinkedIn works really well.
Yeah.
Facebook not so much, and I always thought Facebook would be really good for.
Are you talking organic?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you
Zero.
find
Dunno.
best results. I mean, that's an interesting point. We're debating the other day what the best sort of organic social platforms. So you're saying LinkedIn's best for driving traffic to the website.
Yes.
But it's business traffic.
completely.
It's business to business traffic we're talking about here, though, isn't it? So it would
Yeah.
make sense that LinkedIn would send decent traffic. Do you share your articles by links, or do you use Article Publisher and publish longer articles on LinkedIn to get and then send people back to the online magazine?
No, we've never published the longer articles on LinkedIn actually, and that might be something to explore. But usually we'll just post links, and we'll post every day at least.
Okay.
The same on Instagram. So Instagram stories have done quite well for us. So we post around 5 to 6 every day, linking back to the articles that have just gone on. And it's really important for us digitally wise is to be the first person to publish a story. So I'm always like, the girls are always in the office and I'm like, right, okay, get on it. We need to do this before anyone else does. Because at the end of the day, you want to be the first person to publish a story. You want to get that traffic through. And it's good for the clients as well to be able to
Exclusives.
get as many people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn, Instagram. What's your kind of third best social network? Would that be Facebook? Do you think, or do you really find Facebook's throttled back?
Facebook is good if you're doing, so sometimes, especially for the lifestyle side, so the clients might want to run a competition and raise brand awareness through that, especially hotels and restaurants. We did one competition with the Raby Hunt a year or so ago, and that got really, really good traction because that was perfect for our brand. So stuff like that on Facebook's fine. Paid lead generation, I think, on Facebook is the best.
And do you ever
B2C, I suppose.
pay to get via promoted posts or meta ads in terms of driving traffic, or do you purely rely on organic?
No, so we do paid campaigns, and but to be honest, they don't work as well as they used to, which is really frustrating. Back in the day, like I'm 100, but 5 years ago, I would say you could be so targeted and reach exactly the right people, but obviously they've taken some of those demographics away when you're choosing them and things like that. So, I mean, we do paid, but we don't put a lot of money into the paid Facebook side of things. I think, to be honest, I would quite like to explore paid LinkedIn over Facebook. I haven't done much of that yet, but I think there could be quite a lot of opportunity in that.
We should probably talk about TikTok, shouldn't we? Is TikTok a consideration for you when it comes to driving traffic, or do you feel that's not the right demographic?
We have TikTok accounts. We've got them for both Bradley Hall and for Portfolio. They've done okay, but not as well as what I would have liked. I mean, people say you'll reach so many more people on TikTok, and I just don't think that's the case. And I think as well, you've got to have enough capacity to be able to do these things well. We're quite tight in terms of the teams at the minute, just because essentially Portfolio is a startup. And Bradley Hall does quite well because the properties go viral. So we get a lot of traction through that. I mean, between Portfolio and Bradley Hall, we had 165 million impressions last year.
That's good.
And most of that's organic. So,
But you said you started in 2017, or the magazine
Yeah.
did. So why are you saying it's a startup then?
it's startup in terms of when we set it up as a separate business.
Oh, okay.
So our class the magazine as being what it is now from 2021.
Okay.
But then I suppose it started on a springboard because I had that time when I was running it as a publication for Bradley Hall to learn so much and without a lot of risk, because essentially, like I say, it was a brochure for us. So learned a lot in that time, and then we set it up as this business.
So, something else I'm quite interested in. You talked about how obviously you wear several hats. With the estate agency side of what you do, sometimes the properties will go viral and will naturally generate a ton of conversation. Now, from a publishing perspective, how hard do you work to drive conversation and drive engagement around a story? And do you ever kind of craft those stories or craft those headlines so that they'll appear or get traction on social media first? And what's your strategy if that's the case?
I think for us, one of the key pillars of Portfolio North is integrity. So, and I see a lot of headlines that are just done for clickbait. And I think for some people that's absolutely fine if that's what you need to do. But for us, a lot of the stories are submitted, so I don't like to mess on with them and change them. I know other platforms do that and get it wrong, so I don't like to do that. I think, like I say, I like to publish how it comes through. I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say that we craft things purposely to gain more traction. Maybe we should, occasionally. But we do try and get as much attention as possible from the right people.
So we'll talk about your fuck-ups in a minute, don't worry. I think that's what we want to get into. A good proportion of our listeners are PR professionals. We obviously have listeners from all sorts of fields of marketing.
Yeah.
But from a PR perspective, I'm guessing you get tapped up quite a lot by PRs. Now, how as a kind of a more of a forward-thinking publisher, digitally, big digital presence, what does a good pitch from a PR look like, and what are you after? How do you want to work with PRs?
I think that, to be honest, sometimes we get stories through and there's no real angle. There's no real news angle. You've got to make sure that there's definitely a really strong news angle in there and something that people are going to... It's basic, isn't it? Yeah, it's so basic, but the amount of rubbish that you get through is unbelievable.
What percentage would you think is good or bad?
10% good, 90% bad. Which is...
It's shocking, really.
That's
Isn't
a
it?
damning
So
indictment
bad.
of the industry,
It is
isn't
bad,
it?
yeah.
It's because I think...
It's because people have got clients, and clients demand
Exactly.
content out. They want releases out, I think.
Yeah.
People will know if it's if there's not a story in it.
Yeah.
But it's the PR's job to advise
To
the
consult
client.
them.
Yeah,
to be a consult.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise
So
it's
I
a
think
waste of
that's
time.
probably the biggest challenge in being a PR is constantly having to explain what's news and what isn't to clients.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that you have to be best at to be a PR.
And what proportion read the magazine before pitching, or do you think sometimes you just show up on a media search and people just send?
Yeah, definitely. So we get a lot from outside the region, and we are regional. So the Yorkshire edition will only cover businesses in Yorkshire. In the Northeast has always just covered things in the Northeast. So we get a lot of invites to go to places in Cornwall and other places. I'm like, no.
6 hour round trip.
Yeah,
More than that. 8 hour round
exactly,
trip.
We are
yeah.
available for free trips to Cornwall if you're out there.
I mean, if anyone wants to give us a trip to the Maldives, I'll happily oblige and do a
Send
review.
it to Chris at Prohibition.
Press trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do get quite a bit that isn't relevant, but I don't want that to discourage people from sending things through, because sometimes if I can advise, and sometimes I will go back and say, look, I think you just need to sort of tweak it a little bit, try and do that, and then come back with it.
Yeah.
Because I understand what it's like. I've worked as a PR for 5 years. So yeah, I think it does take a little bit of collaboration, and I think sometimes, typically, there's always been a little bit of animosity between PRs and journalists. And I don't want it to be like that for Portfolio. So we're very much open to conversation.
Yeah, it's just a symbiotic relationship at the end of the day, isn't it? If it's done correctly. And to what degree is kind of rich media valued by you guys? I know a lot of agencies, Prohibition included, would generally consider packaging up visual assets, video content to support a traditional press release. Is that
Podcasts.
Yeah.
seamless. So yeah, to what degree is that important to you?
It's super important. I mean, occasionally you'll get through a press release without an image, or the image will be embedded in a Word document, and you're like, no, I need it to be high res, because the digital stuff that we get through as well, occasionally we'll print stuff in the mag. So really high res images, really clear, ones that are definitely relevant to the story is nice. No shutter stocks. Video content, always welcome as well, so we can post it on socials. So yeah, it's just as much as possible.
So really, from the PR's perspective, we need to be thinking in terms of what's going to work on your social channels, what's going to be most engaging, as well as what the traditional news release looks like.
And how do businesses
yeah.
engage you then? Because obviously PRs are sending stories in and things like that to get. But a business, what do they do? Sponsorships and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we'll have a lot of businesses come on as partners. Well, I say a lot, but there's 3 partners on the magazine.
Right.
So in the Northeast, we've got Sunderland City Council, we've got BDM, which is an architect, and we have the SDD Smith Group. They own quite a few different types of businesses, so interior design, legal, construction. So we've got 3 partners, and then we'll work really closely with probably around 20 other businesses that pay to advertise in the Northeast version. So they obviously get more support. We try and help them with the editorial drafting and kind of work really closely with them. They get invited to events, things like the wine clubs. So yeah, there's two really important elements to it.
Okay.
So taking a few steps back then, let's say we go back to, how far do you want to go back? 2021? Is that the date we're looking at when you consider what's the peak kind of growth of Portfolio North? I want to talk through some of the mistakes you've made along the way to get there.
I think starting 2017.
17, right?
Yeah, because the learning curve I think came in that period. Like I say, I think I was really, really fortunate that I was able to start as a proper business. When I'd had how many years? 4 years behind us already, which a lot of people obviously don't have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, there was a lot of fuck ups.
Come on then, let's hear about your fuck ups. What did you learn? What if you could advise yourself, if you saw yourself then now and you bumped into yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
I don't think I would do anything differently. I think my challenge was running a magazine completely on my own.
Yeah.
For so long. So usually there'd be a big team. I had a designer who was great. Paul was the one who started the magazine, and now I work with a guy called Ross who's brilliant and who literally works through the night sometimes to get it on deadline. But I think for me, I was so tight for time, I maybe wasn't doing everything as good as what I could have been. So I've had 2 letters through the post. So I've got a secret admirer / critic who likes to rip the pages out and tell us everything I've done wrong on the page. I should have brought it with us.
Oh,
so
I like that.
the editor's notes particularly, I got a letter through with all of the mistakes.
Helpful
to be
feedback.
honest, it was very subjective. It was like too conversational and blah, blah, blah. And I took that really personally when I got it through. I was really upset about it.
And completely anonymous.
Completely anonymous.
Oh, anonymous.
Any
Well, then
inklings?
I know who it was.
Oh, it's a troll. I mean, there's
Well-
loads of them out there.
I'm pretty sure I know who it is, and I
Is this
will
gonna be
call him out one
Is this going to be an
day.
exclusive revelation on the podcast?
I'm not saying who it is
No, fair
publicly, but one day I'm sure I will have a word with him. But yeah, so there's things like that which I wish I'd been able to do better. But it's either do it, get it out, or wait until it's perfect. And sometimes things can't be perfect.
No.
Yeah, sometimes good enough is good enough, isn't it?
Completely, yeah. But now we are striving for perfect now that I've got the bigger team in place. So I've got designers, I've got photographers, I've got writers, I've got Anna in the office all the time who does the marketing and who's helping us to get it out there and do the digital side of things. So the next step is getting things completely 100%.
So we haven't got to the biggest fuck up that you have made then in your career. You shared some on LinkedIn the other day, actually.
I did. To be honest, I think this started pretty early. I wouldn't say there's been any huge fuck-ups with the magazine, but
No typos.
Oh, yeah, there's been typos. In headlines.
Oh.
Town was repeated, so it was like something about Morbith being the most beautiful market. Town.
Town.
Town. There's been extra zeros in numbers.
Oh, that could be good for inflating the price of your business.
It was an article about, it was a play on words, so it was like, you know, when you say making something look $1 million.
Yeah.
It's meant to say £1 million, but it said £10 million, which is even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, there has been a few. A long time ago now, we've got a much better proofing process now, and more people read it, so that doesn't happen anymore. But
I'm curious how many, even with the biggest proofing team ever, do you still get the odd typo sneaking through? Because you sometimes spot them in the Sunday Times and stuff, don't you? And you think
So-
if anyone,
Exactly.
I've got a story about this. So when I started out in PR back in the early 1800s, we got taken to where the Times and the Sun produce all their stuff, and because I was working in tech PR, we went to see the Tech Times. It was a tech magazine in the Times, right? And basically, he said, "This is how many press releases we get a day." Put them on the desk, and there was like 500. And then he went, "And another 500." then he went, kept putting them on the desk and went, there you go. It's about 2,500. And he said, so what do you think about editing then? It's the subbies edit the magazines, right? The newspaper and the magazine. And he says, did you know that the sub-editor is the most expensive, highly paid journalist in the whole of journalism for The Sun? And we were like, The Sun, sub-editor is the highest paid journalist. Yeah. And the reason, and he said, we even did a test. So we swapped the sub-editor of The Times and the sub-editor of The Sun one day, and they both did each other's jobs. And The Times was fine. It was exactly like it was every day. And The Sun was totally shit. Because to get that copy down, edited, and from a long-winded story to a nice, sharp, punchy, is really, really difficult. It's a skill, isn't it?
Yeah,
and then to cut
completely.
all the problems out and the mistakes and everything. I just thought it was quite interesting because you wouldn't think a sub-editor would be the highest paid journalist in journalism, but or in print journalism.
It's those amazing headlines they come up with, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The blooming, the hooks. It's always, some of the headlines can't be shared on this, even on this podcast. Frolicking is what are the other words that they use? Only in the Sun.
Yeah. The Daily Mail's even worse, isn't it?
Oh,
They're listed.
Romp. That's
they
it.
are getting worse and worse. The Daily Mail is horrendous. I get angry now when I read
It's
those
quite
stories.
misogynistic, actually, as well, isn't it? The language, a woman can't walk out of her house without putting on a leggy display, for example. And there's a real list of kind of quite offensive, cliched words.
It's meant to
Yeah.
make you angry, the Daily Mail, isn't it? It's meant to wind you up, I think.
Must be
to get you to
because-
buy it, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's the ultimate clickbait, isn't it? Some of those, it's the same principle on social media, isn't it? Angry content gets the most engagement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is sad, I think, isn't it?
It's a race to the bottom,
it
isn't
is
it?
a race to the
Because
bottom.
it's
awful.
it's breeding this, like you say, anger and frustration in people because news is so influential.
And it could be positive.
And that's
they-
exactly
the positive
why we
news side.
do.
There is a side that's all positive news, and it does terrible.
Yeah.
Because people want disaster and permacrisis, and we pretend we don't want to hear it, but it would be nice to have a nice and finally story regularly. Like a bit of balance, a bit of
Yeah.
positivity.
There we go. That's an idea for your next edition.
Yeah.
How to be positive
Well,
in the media.
I think for us, so we run all the positive stories. We don't run any negative news, but it's so specific and regional that people are interested in it because it's what's happening on their doorstep. Whereas internationally, you never see a positive international news story, do you? Because no one gives a shit.
No, that's true.
But it's human nature to gravitate towards negative stories or towards gossip.
Mm.
And I think it'll take a long time, but it would be nice that if in 20 years human nature had changed a little bit, or the newspapers contributing towards that.
Well, we'll all be robots by then, won't we? We'll all be artificial
Yeah.
intelligence.
So what about the future of publishing
Yeah.
then? That's a fairly big question.
Uh-huh.
And I don't
Did
wanna
we
put-
get to the
question.
biggest fuck up?
Oh,
though?
yeah, sorry.
We never got to it, did
Oh
we?
God!
What is?
We'll come back to the future of publishing.
Yeah.
I think with the magazine, honestly, I can't think of any huge ones. There's been little ones. A woman rang once because we posted a magazine through her door. She didn't like it. And I picked up the phone. She went, "Are you anything to do with Portfolio North?" I was like, "Yes, I'm the director." She went, "Well, you should be ashamed. That's nothing to be proud of." And I was like, "Oh no,
But
why?
that was awful." Because she didn't want it through her door. I was like, "It's
Don't post things
free
through
magazine.
a free magazine through my
Yeah.
door.
It's a lovely magazine as well."
You
Put
should
it-
have dropped a copy of what's it called, on your doorstep. Do you get that where you live?
Is that?
It's just full of ads. It's like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
those
like
little ones. Yeah, little A5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are full of ads.
You can moan about that one.
But I think for me, so I've been sacked twice.
Okay.
Once from the bar job that I'd spoke about on LinkedIn.
So you have to explain to the
So,
listeners what
yeah,
you
I
did.
will
What
do.
happened?
So I just wasn't very good at it. I was 19.
What sort of bar was it?
It was like an old man's pub. Like
Okay.
we used to do Sunday dinners. So I used to do 200 Sunday dinners on a Sunday. And bearing in mind I was 19, so I was going out every Saturday. And I probably wasn't completely like on form every Sunday. So there was that. We used to do the bar and all that sort of thing. So, but I wasn't doing anything else at the time. I'd just quit uni. I'd left an English literature degree, which I always wanted to do an academic degree and then do PR. But which made no sense because I knew I wanted to go into PR career, so I should have just done the PR degree. But anyway, I was sacked on my birthday.
Happy
So
birthday.
that was nice. Yeah.
Ouch.
I know that was a kick, but it was the best thing that ever happened to us because it forced me to look at what I was doing. Because I don't know if I ever would have started uni if I wasn't sacked from that job.
What, it made you to stop to think, why has this happened?
Yeah. I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? I had no money, nothing to fall back on. So then I got a job on a makeup counter, which was brilliant because that taught us a lot about sales, which obviously I need to use today for the magazine. And then I started the PR degree that would then...
At Sunderland?
At Sunderland Uni, it was, I don't think they do the full PR degree anymore, which is a bit sad.
Do you know what?
It's just post-grad.
I wrote an article about 2 months ago because I used to teach on the Leeds Beckett PR degree.
Yeah.
And I'm a graduate of the PR degree, and that's ended. That's the longest. I think that was the longest running one. There was one in Bournemouth, one there, and then eventually there was about 18 PR degrees, and now I don't think I think there might be one in the UK left.
That's crazy.
It's sad, is what it is for the industry.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't know why. You can still do mixed qualifications, and it is something that I might get somebody on this podcast to come on and talk about because I know some people who work in that sector and have worked on PR degrees. But ultimately, it's a number. It's a numbers game. It's about getting paid, isn't it? And there's people paying for their degree. I don't know if you paid for your degree or whether you got it. So So what happened then? So you did your degree.
Did my degree. I got a job. My first job in PR was working so it was for a PR agency, but it was also like the main client was a football club.
All right. Cool. Which one?
Newcastle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I got that, worked there for 3 months and got sacked from that job.
Okay.
For anything in particular?
No, I just, again, don't think I was very good at it. I think...
Sports PR, was it?
Well, yeah, but there was a lot of, like, they just wanted us to do coding and back-end website stuff, and I was like, this isn't what I have to my degree in. And I tried really, really hard. But the funny thing was, or the not funny thing was, I just quit my job at Boots on the makeup counters.
Yeah.
Which was a really, really well-paid job at the time for me. Me and my boyfriend, now husband, were looking for a house at the time. So, like, that was one of the worst things ever because I had nothing.
How long were you there for?
Only about 3 months. But the worst thing was, the most frustrating thing was, I'd said to her the week before, am I going to be working here more? Shall I leave my other job? She was like, yeah, leave your other job. It's fine. And then sacked us the week after.
Oh, so what did you do then? What did that teach you? Did you have to have a moment of reflection there as well?
God, yeah. Like, to be honest, that was towards graduating. So I was working there part-time.
Oh, so you weren't full...
while I was in my final year.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
But I thought that was going to be my full-time job after I graduated.
But all is not lost if you haven't graduated yet.
Well, at the time, though, it's like the worst thing ever because, like I said, me and my partner were living with his mum. Literally had to find a house, had to find somewhere to live. So it kind of that felt like a really big fuck up at the time, and I did blame myself at the time. And now I look back, now that I manage other people, I know that partly obviously wasn't the right fit, and sometimes that happens. So yeah, there was that, and then I got a job at MHW PR the day after I graduated, so it was fine.
And it's all worked out okay.
Yeah, had to go back to bar jobs in between.
Okay.
But yeah, being sacked twice is not.
I guess
not the best.
No, it's not. But you get an impression of what the type of agency you don't want, for example, isn't it? And I think
you do. You learn.
In the interview stage, it's so important to be absolutely transparent about what the job's going to be. Because it's just a huge waste of everybody's time, isn't it? The effort to onboard somebody is intense. We look at 3 to 6 months to properly onboard somebody, and if that doesn't work out, it's a huge waste of time.
Sometimes it just doesn't work out though, like because we've had people. We've got 30 staff here, and you try your best with people, and they try their best, and sometimes it just doesn't quite click, and and that's fine. It doesn't mean the person's terrible. It just sometimes because what the job that we do is you have to spin a lot of plates, you have to please a lot of clients. It's quite an intense role, but it's also quite a fun role if you can do the job and be adaptable. I think it is quite It's not for everybody, is what I'm trying to say.
No, it definitely isn't. And I think when you're young as well, you don't quite understand that. Like, you think, if I'm good at my job, then I should be able to work anywhere. And it just doesn't necessarily work like that. You need a click, and you need to be a good personality match as well, I think.
So let's segue into the future of publishing then.
Yeah.
So just to put you on the spot, I guess it's a declining sector in a lot of areas, but obviously you guys are a bit of the opposite story, really. You know, you're
Yeah.
growing, you're looking at launching into new territories. So where are things going? You know, in the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see publishing going? What's it going to look like? Are we going to be
Yeah.
still sort of pivoting back to physical copies, high quality physical copies? Is it all going to be online?
I think it needs to be a really good combination of both. I think for a long time, people thought that digital would be the answer, and then obviously BuzzFeed died, Vice went under as well, and I think that, like we were talking about earlier, the daily newspaper model doesn't work anymore either. So you can't put all of your eggs in one basket. People want different options. They want convenience sometimes. So if you want to read daily updates, then a magazine isn't necessarily the one for you. You want to be able to do that digitally. So I think you need to have a combination of a really strong digital offering, so that good website, readability as well is really important, because you go on the national, the local newspapers that are owned by the nationals, and there's so many pop-ups on those websites. It's impossible to read. The layout's awful. So the digital stuff needs to be really clear and concise and interesting and engaging still. Having the social media platforms as well, because when we did the perception survey last year, a lot of people keep up to date with news on social media. If you want to see what's going on, you go on Twitter, because it's so live and reactive, and you want to know about it first.
You do, but the kids and the teenagers they get their news from TikTok.
Yeah,
It's
TikTok
shocking how
now,
much news they
yeah.
get from TikTok, and everything's just taken as is on TikTok.
Yeah, but the TikTok is like, there's so much shit on there though, like,
Yep.
and so
Misinformation.
much, yeah, like fake news and things that have got these really awful like undertones as well. Like the messaging out there, I think can really influence people, and yeah, there's a lot of. I find TikTok a little bit scary, because I see people my age being influenced by it, and I think when you've got that life experience and you're still watching content online and developing these opinions of things that aren't necessarily right.
I feel like this. We don't want to go down this route, but Andrew Tate.
Oh God, that's exactly what I was referring to.
Yeah, one of the few platforms where he's still allowed, and yeah, I mean, big conversation that we're not going to talk about today.
But it's when you see content like that, and because the algorithm's so good,
Yeah. The rabbit hole.
it is a rabbit hole, and the deeper you get into it, the more dangerous I think it becomes. I mean, people could like one video of Andrew Tate, for example, and then become influenced by all these other indifferent opinions, and I think TikTok's a bit scary.
So something you said then, and we talked about earlier, which I find quite interesting. There's almost a resurgence in this kind of physical, premium, tactile, beautiful-looking magazine. Is that what you're seeing? You know, there's
Glossy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
people still want a glossy mag that they can flick through, stick it on their coffee table.
Yes, most definitely. Which has been a challenge, to be honest, though, because paper went up by 100% last year.
Ouch.
I know. I didn't. Like every invoice was getting bigger and bigger, and I was like,
Ooh.
"Oh God!" Like this is so. The important thing is with the magazine is that there's no wastage. So every copy goes somewhere that I know someone is interested in reading it, and that it's our target audience. But I do think people appreciate a really nice magazine, and I picked a few up, and the paper quality is terrible now. Of even the big like Condé Nast magazines, Tatler, turn a page and it rips.
And these things matter, actually, don't they?
Completely, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the most important lesson you've learnt of your career?
That you don't know everything. You might think that you know everything and you don't. Like, you have to be so open-minded, I think. I spent a lot of my 20s, I think, thinking that I knew best. And now I don't want to ever be in that position where I think I know better than anyone else. I think you've got, like I say, open-minded, open to conversation, open to learning new things. Something that works now might not work again in 6 months. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Explore different tactics, and especially with digital as well, it changes so quickly. And the things that people respond to change so quickly. So try new things all of the time, and see what works.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, something that resonates with our thinking. I mean, what used to be annual marketing strategies in the world of social media, you're probably looking at 6 month to quarterly marketing strategies now because of the pace of change.
Yeah.
And then you've got channel strategies from that big strategy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps us in a job, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Every review.
I do this master spreadsheet at the start of every year, but really, I don't know why I bother. I'm not going to next year because, like you say, things change so often.
One thing I'm quite interested to talk to you about is personal branding. Now, I know you're at the start of a bit of a personal branding journey, and I know you're very, very active on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a conscious decision? And talk us through why you do it and why it's important to you, if it is.
Yeah, I think it is. It's really important. I think now people buy from people. People want to engage in people who have got similar sort of thoughts and beliefs, and make sure that what they stand for is the same. So I think it's really important to develop your own profile. And to be honest, on LinkedIn, it's very difficult to reach a big audience via business pages. It's easier to do it by personal pages. So yeah, it is a conscious decision, and I do encourage everyone in both the businesses that I work in to do the same, because it's given me a lot of opportunities, and I've had a lot of clients come off the back of it. I think most of them actually have come off the back of LinkedIn. Opportunities like this, just reaching out and growing your network as well. I think it's super important.
So talk us through your approach then. Do you proactively prospect people? I know most of us on LinkedIn, we get endless inboxes, don't we, from recruitment consultants and everyone else along the way. What's your strategy then? How do you engage with people?
I think it's a bit like a sales funnel type situation, and this is what I do try and encourage with the rest of the business as well. So it's making sure that Jason, who's working in Yorkshire, if he's met with someone, that making sure that I've got them on LinkedIn as well, so they can see a little bit more about what we're about, making sure that they receive a magazine after, making sure that they're invited to events. People that engage on the portfolio business page as well, making sure that we're connected with them. And like I say, just taking it step by step. I would never ever add someone on LinkedIn and send them a message straight away, because I think it's the basics of marketing, isn't it? It's someone, if someone has a perception or an opinion or have seen what you're about first, then the sales process becomes a lot easier. Going in cold, I just don't think works at all. I think giving people the exposure to what we're about first is the best strategy with LinkedIn.
And in terms of kind of what you talk about and your kind of content strategy then, so do you purely talk about business matters, things happening at Portfolio North? Are you kind of comfortable mixing in a bit of the personal content? Because I mean that's a big trend, isn't it, at the moment on LinkedIn?
It is, yeah, and the personal stuff actually does a lot better than the business stuff. I mean, I tend to just probably do 1 in 5 business posts, and the rest are more like observations or advice or things that I've been doing. So I've been on a couple of holidays recently, and I've posted about taking time out and things like that, and just being honest and raw. I think people want. It's a little bit more like the traditional like blog style content, isn't it? Now I think that performs better, and I think starts more conversations as well.
So am I right in saying the personal content is the majority of what you post, but it's still anchored in a business objective?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, because my mind's constantly going. I mean, I don't really switch off, and I think a lot of people now don't.
You must have switched off by that poll that you put on LinkedIn a few weeks ago.
Oh no, I was writing an article on mortgages. While
Where was that?
there.
Where was that poll?
I went to Tenerife
Okay.
for a week to do nothing.
Yeah.
I haven't had a holiday like that for so long.
So then you sat by the poll and started writing on LinkedIn.
Yeah. and reading magazines and
How to
looking at
switch off.
layouts
But the
and
post
like
got really good engagement.
yeah,
so it's all right.
exactly. So yeah, I spent that week. To be honest, I find holidays. I like holidays like that because it gives you a bit of headspace to
Yeah.
be creative.
Yeah.
You can't be creative when you're doing the day-to-day stuff, and I think when you try and force it, it becomes more frustrating and more disappointing that you can't think of new ideas. So I think having some time out and having some breathing space,
Decompress.
yeah. But then you're still thinking about work, but
Yeah, but
just
that's
in
fine.
a more relaxed way.
I think for me, when I go on holiday, I think my holiday is next week, by the way.
Where you going?
Turkey.
Nice.
With the kids, so not much of a holiday.
I don't remember signing that one off, Chris.
You what?
I don't remember signing that one off.
You're not my boss.
You're not the boss of me.
You're not the boss of me. Get out. Yeah, so I tend to think that what I do is have the first 2 or 3 days is just I don't even turn my phone on for the first 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
And then it gets to
good.
that day 3 or 4 and I think, right, now I can turn it back on and maybe check because just to like get bored, get bored
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like have a couple of beers by the pool, which you'd never do normally, and then just unwind. And then, like you say, my mind starts to come back to, because if you don't switch it, that's the whole, for me personally, that's how I would reflect, because you've got to have that time to reflect and just to let your brain untangle all the little bit, because there's so many things when you run a business, isn't
yeah,
there?
yeah, completely.
So back to, you said a point there I found quite interesting. So the personal stuff tends to do better than the business stuff. What sort of multiples are we looking at here? Are we talking it does far better, or are we looking at, does it do marginally better?
Probably 3 or 4 times better,
Interesting.
I would say. I think, yeah, 4 times better, I would say. I mean, to me, I'm not super personal. I don't post, like, I'll post when I'm on holiday and
Yeah.
what I've been doing, but I do think that there's a line. And I think to avoid you becoming or losing yourself completely into your professional profile, I think that has to be.
During the
Difference.
pandemic, that people started sharing everything because your personal life became your business life. But I'm with you. I think it should be 80%. 80%. It should all be business, but
Yeah.
don't start. I mean, holiday photos are an interesting one because yours was just of a nice pool and the view was beautiful and it was like, I'm here to
Yeah.
unwind, and that was it, wasn't it? That's all you're saying. I'm just here to decompress. Whereas some people sort of took LinkedIn in a different direction and started sharing, talking about what they were doing on holiday, and that doesn't really. That's not what that platform is about.
Well, in actual fact, the latest algorithm updates are going to start throttling back overly personal content
Yeah.
on,
Oh, right,
LinkedIn.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
But the content that Cassie's talking about, where she's like asking for, I've got some business tips, or this is the big fuck up that I made in my career. What have you done? They're brilliant because people like to have an opinion.
Relates to work as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
and that's what I think LinkedIn
Yeah.
wants, that kind of content.
It's the water cooler gossip stuff, like
Yeah.
advice or stuff that stands out
Exactly.
from
yeah.
all the general. Because business news is just, you just scroll. Oh, this is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about? So obviously LinkedIn is a platform you use. How do you kind of manage your other channels? Do you still have channels for your friends and family that are locked down? Do you have no barriers whatsoever when it comes to your social and your professional persona?
I don't think I really use social media socially as much anymore because I think the people who I want to talk to, I'll text or I'll just speak to in person. Like, I don't like Facebook anymore. I often think, like, when people are posting on Facebook, at what point in your day do you think, oh, I must post this on Facebook? I'll tell everyone what I've had for my dinner on Facebook. I just think it's strange.
I can't remember the last time I posted on Facebook.
No.
I can remember the last time you tweeted.
Don't. I'm
What
not a big
happened?
fan of Twitter. I think it's about.
What did you do?
No, nothing terrible.
he
Just,
doesn't-
it's
he-
what I haven't done, basically.
Oh,
It's,
right, okay.
I think
We had a bit of
I'm
bants this week.
Although I must admit, I'm highly inactive on Twitter, but Barack Obama follows me.
No.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh, and the host of Social Pros follows me, Jay Bear.
Right.
Yeah, I
Well,
noticed that the other day. I was buzzing about that.
I mean, that's
But
the
no
fact
good
Barack Obama
followers.
follows you. I mean, when
that's more impressive, I would say.
yeah,
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama than
He
Jay.
must like my 3 tweets that I've done since
Yeah.
opening my account.
How the hell did you get Barack Obama to
don't
follow
know.
you on Twitter?
I don't know.
That's my new challenge now. I need to get someone really good to follow us on Twitter.
I was once atted by Paul Potts from the X Factor.
No.
Do you remember him?
Then
Yeah.
Michael Barrymore.
Michael Barrymore spoke to me as well. or
No.
something like that, yeah. We had some random You have some random things that happen on Twitter, don't you?
And do you use Twitter?
Yeah, I do. So I share all the news stories from my personal Twitter and then use it for like personal tweets.
And do you find the kind of the personal focus versus business focus yields better results on Twitter as well?
Not necessarily, no. I think Twitter's just random. I think it depends.
It's not as random as Threads is at the moment.
Oh, I haven't even tried that.
It was great, and then it's broken again. I don't know. It doesn't quite. That's struggling.
Yeah.
But Elon's talking of changing Twitter's name at the
Really?
moment to X, the letter X.
He loves
Which-
the letter X, isn't he?
He's-
It's called X.
He's got
something.
businesses at SpaceX, and that's his business, isn't it? X
yeah.
owns Tesla, doesn't it?
Tesla Model X.
Yeah. It's all
Yeah.
a bit random.
Yeah.
Elon, just leave it as it is. Twitter's fine.
So what have you noticed since, when was it, October, November last year when Elon took over Twitter? Has it become any more or any less of a cesspit?
I haven't noticed a huge difference, to be honest. So all of the news stories that we share are scheduled through
Yeah.
Hootsuite. So I use the platform that I've got there to get the news out, but I don't spend hours scrolling on Twitter.
So you use it as a broadcasting medium?
You don't
I
listen
think
to.
so,
You don't
yeah.
use it to see.
Go
Like
on
listen.
every now and again,
Interesting.
but
It is time consuming, so it's getting the most of how to get the most out of using it, I suppose.
I think for us, so we've got all the platforms for Portfolio North. We're going to have them all for Yorkshire. We've got an Instagram for the wine club. We've got an Instagram for the food reviews. We've got the marketing memo, which we've just launched today as well, which is basically just a LinkedIn profile for like marketing advice and tips and things like that. And then we've got all the Bradley Hall accounts as well. So in total, there's probably 30 accounts that I need to keep an eye on. And a lot of the content that I record, so when I went to Italy, for example, I went wine tasting. So instead of posting it on my personal account to not duplicate the content, I'll post it on the wine club. So I kind of don't post as much on my own to save content for the business accounts.
Obviously, you started out in public relations,
Yes.
and now you're working in the marketing and sales role. How does that differ from public relations?
Oh, God, hugely. Well, I suppose it all ties in, doesn't it? I mean, so PR, when I graduated, I wrote news stories all day, every day, and didn't do much else. Touched on social a little bit. Maybe the odd event, but not very often. But now, I think the newspapers have all commercialised completely. So the likelihood of you getting a press release in the newspaper now is a lot lower than what it was before. So you've obviously got to be a lot more creative. People are wanting more digital hits as well, building backlinks and doing all that kind of thing. So that's totally different to what I was doing from the start. I think now you've kind of got to be a little bit of you've got to understand all of the different elements and bring it all together. I don't think there's such thing as just PR the way it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, Cassie. That was really interesting to hear about the magazine and to see it finally rolling out in Yorkshire.
Thank you.
So
I know.
I'm hoping that we're heading further south in the Midlands and the South at some point, but we'll let you continue with your worldwide domination. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you for
maybe
having us.
do you want to give us some URLs for people to look at if they want to look up the magazine?
Yeah, of course. If anyone wants to read the magazine online, you can find it at portfolionorth.co.uk. Sign up to the newsletter, and we'll have an app launching soon as well. So we'll let everyone know as soon as that's live.
Fantastic, and we'll put some details of that in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
And
Thank
if
you.
you want to see this rather than listening to this, check out. This is my own plug for our show. Make sure you check out youtube.com/@prohibitionpr and click on podcasts, because all our podcasts are being recorded now and placed on there as vodcasts. So that was really interesting getting Cassie Moyes in to talk about the publishing sector and how she's growing a publication, and she's like a shining light in an industry that has been struggling. You know, the publication sector, publishing things online, but this was more about publishing something both digitally and in the real world. And it was really interesting, wasn't it, Will? What did you take from it?
Yeah, definitely. This kind of pivot back to the printed material, it almost feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? But actually, there is still a demand for something beautifully printed, high quality production. The other thing I found quite interesting is the kind of the crucial role of social media in actually driving awareness and traffic around a publication. So it's no longer just a publication existing in a silo. Actually, you need to consider social media as part of that. You need to consider broader kind of value to your readers and advertisers in the way of clubs or events and things like that. So it's a much more holistic picture.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the media, the traditional media that we know, maybe we need to get someone from the traditional media on this show. I think like a glossy magazine, maybe a consumer mag. I think that's because listening to how they monetize content is fascinating for what we're talking about today. Like Cassie's been using it to grow the magazine, but actually a lot of the national newspapers worry that social media is taking traffic away. You're sending traffic to a different platform. They're trying to get people, whereas Cassie's using it to send traffic to to her, to her magazine. So I did think it's interesting because it's a slightly different approach, but it's obviously working because they're growing.
Yeah, and I think from a PR perspective, if you put your PR hat on, you need to look beyond the press release, and really your story or whatever it is you're pitching has to work in multimedia. Probably has to have a social media element where it's going to drive conversation. And I think if you can kind of tick all of those boxes, your story or your pitch is going to have a much greater chance of success.
Another thing she discussed that was quite interesting is she's using personal social media. Well, she's using social media for personal branding, and personal branding is a big thing. I used to teach it at the university for the students to get, a role in their job. I said, if you grow your social media, you're going to get people more aware of you. And she seemed to be using it to grow the magazine and grow its readership.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I think what's important there is the personal brand working hand in hand with the kind of the official brand presence on LinkedIn. And if you think about personal pages, have something like 8 to 10 times the engagement and reach of a corporate page. So if the two can kind of coexist, amplifying each other, then that's really the sweet spot. And
unless it's your Twitter account.
Yeah, let's not mention that again.
That's Will Ockenden, twitter.com at Will Ockenden. You'll go up for about 10 followers to add to Barack Obama today. It was a good show. So we've got some great guests coming up as well. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Socially Unacceptable. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget to follow us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Prohibition PR. We would love to hear some of your career fuck-ups so we can share them on the show. For more information on the show, search Prohibition PR in your search engine and click on podcasts. Until next time, please keep pushing the boundaries and embracing the socially unacceptable.